From 2011 to 2015, the Cincinnati Bengals won 10 games each and every season. They reached the postseason each and every season. But last year, a stumble. 6-9-1. Marvin Lewis's contract did not get renewed. He is on the hot seat. You can say that again. 0-7 in his career in Cincinnati in the postseason, entering his 15th season in Cincinnati. So, Cincinnati Bengals preview. Brendan Albert is here. I am Adrian Fedque. Just how hot is that seat?
Oh, that's boiling. I mean, I don't think there's a coach in the NFL right now who's more on the hot seat than Marvin Lewis. I mean, that said, Marvin Lewis is the second longest tenure coach in the NFL, which I think surprises a lot of people. And Adrian, you said it best. 0-7 in the playoffs, just not going to get it done. The Bengals have absolutely given him his fair shot, and the Bengals, with all the talent they've had, I would really say the last 2 seasons was the 2 years were the biggest letdowns for him. So, yeah, he's probably on his way out the season.
Yeah, and that window of theirs, it's closing. It's closing kind of quick.
For sure. Personally, I think it's completely closed. I think, this season they're probably going to finish up, I would say 9-7, 10-6, but maybe a wild card situation, fighting with teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Dolphins. But yeah, I think their window's closed for a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have postseason on their radar. I believe I've got them at like 7-9. See, for me, they lost a lot of guys during free agency, and not just players. I mean, these were locker room guys. They're like guys like Damata Pecco and Ray Malaluga. These guys aren't the greatest players, but the presence that they were in the locker room. And then the offensive line, they lose Andrew Whitworth. That was their stalwart at left tackle. That's the guy who protected Andy Dalton's blind side. Even Kevin Zeitler, he's gone too. So a lot of guys that they have to replace now, and locker room leaders, I don't know if they can really recover for this season. I just don't see it. I think they're kind of done. That window is closed. They need a new guy, and that's it.
Yep, I think absolutely the Bengals are at that part. It's a shame because if they were – this was the NBA, where the NBA, it's so much easier to trade contracts for picks. Then I would say, hey, Bengals, absolutely try to unload some of your high-level guys and just kind of start the rebuild process. The NFL rebuild process takes much longer than it does in the NBA. But, yeah, the Bengals definitely do it. We look at all their loss. You said some big names, big leaders on defense. Who's your leaders now? Vontaze Burfict and Adam Pac-Man Jones. That's probably their most tenure guys. Maybe Carlos Dunlap. AJ Green is obviously your best player, but he's never really been the outspoken character to get in someone's face. It's just not his personality. And then the offensive line, they lost 2 Pro Bowlers. No offensive line in the NFL can lose 2 Pro Bowlers and expect to be at full functioning capacity again. Yeah, I think my outlook of 9-7, 10-6 is kind of the optimistic side of things, but they do have the NFC North and they do have the AFC South, which is 2 of the harder divisions, especially with where the Jags have gotten better, Titans have gotten better, Texans have gotten better. It's not exactly a cupcake road for the Bengals this year.
Yeah, all right. So let's have an Andy Dalton discussion just real quick, just your typical, Andy Dalton discussion. Should he be the starting quarterback in Cincinnati? Do you think he's the guy? I know they paid him the money, but, if Marvin Lewis is gone after this year, do you think maybe they should move into a different direction?
Well, it'd be interesting to see because, it's not impossible for us to see the Bengals turn and have a 5-win season. I don't think that's unlikely, especially if they can't split with the Ravens and Steelers. There's 4 losses potentially right there in the schedule. They'll get the 2 against the Browns, but it's not a stretch to see they could be a bottom dweller. And then if they're sitting there and let's say they get a quarterback, like one of those top 3, maybe 1 or 2 picks, they need to trade up to get them. Might not be a bad idea for the Bengals to clean house and move on. Now, Andy Dalton's contract is going to say, yeah, he's the starter, but I'd be curious to see if the Bengals are sitting there in the draft next season and some of those quarterbacks are either right where they are or in reaching distance. I'd be curious to see what the Bengals do.
Do you want to hear the playoff numbers? These are playoff numbers, not regular season numbers. So the regular season numbers actually are never that bad, but the playoff numbers, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, quarterback rating of 57.8, 218.3 yards per game. It is not pretty at all for Dalton.
just
Ugh.
not getting it done, in winning time. So yeah, I mean, I can understand the people who are saying, hey, it's time to move on and give Aaron Murray his shot. I'm okay with that. But yeah, I don't love Dalton. I think he's probably a top 16 quarterback, probably 12 to 16, maybe even that 12 to 20 guy in the league. But for Cincinnati, they've put weapons all around him. I mean, there's not many receiving, running back, tight end groups in the NFL better than the Bengals, and they just haven't been able to get it done.
Yeah, I'm gonna see where I have Dalton. I have Dalton at where do I have him? Oh God, he's so far down the list I can't even find him. 24.
24. Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's fine.
By the way, I'm not so sure that AJ McCarron isn't better than him.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I said Aaron Murray earlier. It's my fault. I'm not sure that AJ McCarron isn't better. Honestly, I mean, I think honestly it might be a push. I think both of them might be pretty even. I think Cody Kessler, a guy like the Bengals, I think, or on the Browns, I think that's kind of a fair spot to put him in.
Yeah. I've never been a Dalton guy, just not. I mean, I know he had that great year 2 years ago, but I just don't buy it. I don't know. I've never been a Dalton guy. So, all right, we'll kind of go through the positions here, and next one we'll talk running back now. Joe Mixon, is he the best running back on the roster?
Yes.
I agree.
There's not really a big question. I mean, the Bengals went and they gave Gio that new contract. Jeremy Hill's on his last contract year, so I mean, we're probably going to see as much of a spark for him. Mixon is the guy who can do it all. He could be a bell cow. He can receive really well out of the backfield. He can run the ball hard between the tackles like Hill does. I think he's the best fit. The problem is the Bengals are probably going to have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL this year since they lost a left tackle and a really good starting guard. So, no matter who the running back is, they might struggle this year. So, but yeah, Adrian, I would say Joe Mixon is the best running back in their situation in Cincinnati.
Yeah, he's basically what Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard are put together.
Yeah.
Because Mixon can run between the tackles. He's great at bouncing runs to the outside. I mean, you look at Jeremy Hill. He only averaged 3.8 yards per carry last year, 3.6 the year before, and that was behind a pretty good offensive line. So that's pretty unacceptable for me. And then you look at Bernard. I mean, he's a good little scat back, good catching the ball out of the backfield, but he's a guy that always gets hurt. So he's injury prone. So yeah. I like Mixon a lot. I think he can be great for them. I mean, when I was doing like my scouting reports on the players. It's crazy when you watch the running backs, you'll watch them back to back to back to back to back, so you can kind of get more of a feel on things. And, that's when Joe Mixon really stood out to me. So he might be the second best back in this class, behind Fournette to me. We'll see when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's not a stretch to say Joe Mixon could actually outperform Leonard Fournette over his career, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a stretch too. I mean, the other thing people don't really, think about with Joe Mixon is he did return kicks there at Oklahoma in his last season too. So there's another part of his game that he can do. So yeah, Joe Mixon, obviously he's got all the off the field situations, and everyone here is entitled to their own opinion. I'm not even going to speak to those because I don't want to open up that Pandora's box. But talent-wise,
I don't want to get into that.
Talent-wise, Joe Mixon could absolutely be the best running back of this draft.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I was blown away by the tape. Like when I watched it all again, I was like, wow. Like when you watch it against all the other players, and you just look at the speed for a guy his size, it's unbelievable. All right, let's go to wideouts now. So you got AJ Green on the roster. We all know how good he is, but who else is stepping up on that team?
Well, they did draft Tyler Boyd out of Pitt in the second round last year. So that was kind of, they drafted him to kind of replace the Marvin Jones role. And then, they went out and signed Brandon LaFell, and he had a pretty nice year. And then they bring in John Ross. So the John Ross pick surprised me a little bit, just because, it's not like, AJ Green is one of the best vertical ball threats in the NFL. So it's not really like, AJ's really only good underneath like an Anquan Bolden was for years. Not really. I mean, he's one of the best guys at going vertical. So the John Ross pick is nice. I think for the Bengals, where they were sitting there, they were looking and they were saying, you know what, Our biggest need really is offensive line, knowing that we're probably losing those guys. And this was a really bad offensive line class. So for the Bengals, I can't help but assume they tried to trade down, probably didn't get anything they really wanted, and then said, okay, let's go and get a speedster out wide. So John Ross is certainly going to be a freak talent there. They have three really good receivers, and Tyler Boyd potentially could boom this year too. But I just wonder, where are these targets going to go for guys like Boyd, really to develop?
Yeah, I quietly think they have, their receiving core is very, very good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there.
Sure.
But with Tyler Boyd entering his second season. He showed some promise his rookie season. You got John Ross. I'm a John Ross guy. I think he'll be good. I don't know how good he'll be his rookie year, but we'll see about that. You got A.J. Green, and then obviously you got the tight end Tyler Eifert too. So if he can stay on the field, that's a lot of weapons for Andy Dalton. I mean, he's got no excuse on his side. So I actually have the Bengals. I have them ranked as my fourth best receiving core in the NFL. So maybe that's a little high, but with A.J. Green, I mean, you got a top 5 wide receiver, you got one of the best tight ends, and you got a lot of potential in wideout in Boyd and Ross, and even Brandon LaFell to an extent. I mean, he's always been like a solid veteran, so good all the way around. I mean, they've been able to replace Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu really quick.
Very quickly, very good point. And Tyler Eifert has been a tight end who's been able to stay healthy, but most NFL teams, they have, one pretty good third down back. They had that in Gio Bernard. Then they added in Joe Mixon. So now they have 2 really good backs out of the backfield. So the Bengals have done a really great job of giving Dalton everything around him. They've given him every opportunity to succeed. And, I'm not going to say it's all Andy Dalton's fault, but, not winning a playoff game, it's hard to kind of give you anything but fault for a quarterback in the NFL.
And he's been pitiful.
Yeah,
playoff games. It's not just bad; it's really bad. He's stinking up the joint.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to the offensive line now. First of all, Andrew Whitworth. For you guys that really don't know who he is, like, this guy's like a top 5 tackle in the league. I mean, this guy plays with a mean streak. He's mean. He's physical. That dude was a leader in the locker room. He really was for them, and that is a huge loss. I think that's the biggest loss that they had this offseason. And now they're going to try and have Cedric Abui be their left tackle, guy that they drafted recently. I don't remember off the top of my head which year it was, but that's who they're trying to replace him with. We'll see. I mean, question mark on that O-line.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that what the Bengals had done in the past is they had drafted offensive linemen in Cedric Abui from Texas A&M and then Jake Fisher from Oregon, and both of those guys had kind of had spot opportunities to play tackle in the past, and both of them just looked bad. I mean, they were in bad spots, and now those 2 guys are your left and your right tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost Andrew Whitworth, who got a mega deal for the Rams, and makes a ton of sense because obviously that they weren't working out with Robinson out there, but the Bengals are in a bad spot in the tackle position, and if you were concerned about Andy Dalton succeed, before when he had a really good offensive line, he's lost 2 Pro Bowlers. He's got 2 guys who are going to have to replace him who've shown nothing but their inability to be starters in the NFL. I'm very, very worried about the offensive line there in Cincinnati, and in turn, Dalton's probably going to have a really rough year.
Yeah, Jake Fisher is going to be the right tackle, as you explained. I mean, those. That's bad. That's a bad pair of tackles. I'll tell you what, man. Like, we just talked about the weapons that Andy Dalton has. John Ross can't get deep if those tackles can't give him time.
Yeah, quarterback can't take a 5-step drop if he's only got 2 seconds to let it release. Yeah. I mean,
that's scary, man. That O-line, that's scary.
I've always said this: the Bengals and the Bengals now and what the Colts were probably the 2 best 7-on-7 football teams in the NFL, because they did such. Now the Bengals are in a really bad spot in the offensive line, but the Colts have always done bad in the offensive line up front. I think Andy Dalton's in for a year that Andrew Luck's had the last couple of years getting banged around.
Yeah. I mean, the interior isn't that bad because they always had a good pair of guards. You had Zeitler, and you also have Clint Bowling, and then their center is Russell Bodine. So interior isn't terrible, but those tackles, that's leaky, and we'll see. I mean, maybe the tackles will get some help from the guards. I don't know. That's what they're gonna have to do a lot.
The only thing that kind of saves the Bengals in the tackle department is the Steelers have struggled heavily to get pressure off the edge. The Ravens recently have taken a big dip pressure off the edge. Now the Browns, they have Myles Garrett and they have Jamie Collins, so you figure that's going to be a big jump up. But you look at it right there, I mean, 4 games, they're not playing elite rushers. Now, if this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you had a healthy Suggs and a younger James Harrison who was in the 8+ sack category, Bengals were in a worse spot. So if anything helps them is that the division's edge pressures are down, but they're going to have to go out and play teams like the Texans. They're going to get after you, man. So, you're going to be in a rough spot there.
Texans are going to get like 10 sacks. That's Clowney and Watt. Oh, man.
And Merciless.
Merciless. Oh, have mercy. Lord have mercy on Andy Dalton's soul. All right, let's move on to defensive line now. So Paul Guenther was like a popular head coaching candidate just 2 years ago. But last year, the defensive line, well, they only got 9. They got 9 fewer sacks than they did the year before. So the production declined. What do you think about the defensive line? Like, I like Geno Atkins. I like Carlos Dunlap. I don't know about the rest of them.
I'm a big Carlos Dunlap fan. I think he's probably the most underrated defensive end in the NFL. If not, he's very, very high up there.
Yeah.
He for the Eagles fans who are listening, he reminds me a lot of Brandon Graham in that he is very, very high in the league in quarterback pressures, but the sack totals don't always reflect that. But he's getting a lot of knockdowns. So I like Dunlap a lot. Geno Atkins is still a very, very good, still a top 10 interior defensive lineman. He's an elite inside defensive lineman in pass rush situations. And Michael Johnson's a guy that they have now who's kind of shown flashes, throughout his career. And I think, for a defensive end spot, if he's able to play next to Geno Atkins, it helps him a lot.
Yeah, you bring up Michael Johnson. He was great for them in Cincinnati the first time around. Then he went to Tampa Bay, and I don't know what he was drinking down there, but he lost his mojo. So I don't know if he got a trip from the Monstars. They came over. They took his talent. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big situation. I was a little surprised when he struggled there too. I thought, for him going down there and playing with Gerald McCoy, he would have more success, but he struggled. So I'm going to be curious to see, hey, can we find that fountain of youth and jump back in? He's shown the ability to do it. It's just now a matter of, can you be consistent?
Yeah. And dude, that's a great point you made on Carlos Dunlap. Might be the most underrated defensive end in the league. The only other guy I can think of that's as underrated as him possibly is like Everson Griffin.
Yes.
He's another one. But Dunlap, great against the run. He can get after the quarterback. I mean, like you said, the pressures and all, but he does get after the quarterback. And then I love Geno Atkins too. I mean, I still think he's up there in terms of defensive tap. Let me see where I got Geno Atkins ranked. Hold on. The Geno Atkins diet. He's up there. I know he's top 5 in my 4-3 defensive tackles. I got him number 3.
Yeah.
It's Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh, Geno Atkins, Kawan Short, Fletcher Cox. That's my top 5.
They're probably in there. I think I'd probably have Gerald McCoy ahead of some of those guys in there too. But
he's number 6.
Yep, he's another one of those guys in that mix. Absolutely.
Yeah, but they're all like ranked together because Atkins is an 8.3, Short's an 8.3, Cox an 8.3, McCoy's an 8.2. So they're all like basically the same player.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There you go. All right, moving on to linebackers. Let's see. Who do they have at line? Okay, they still have Vontaze Burfict, but okay, actually, you know who I want to talk about, the linebackers? A guy that hasn't really had an opportunity over recent years, but I think he was actually better than Ray Maualuga. Vincent Ray. Do you know about Vincent Ray?
Yes.
He's outstanding, and he never got a shot. He's always been like their 4th, rotational linebacker, so to speak. But I want to see him. He seems like he's finally going to get a chance to start. I think he's going to kill it.
He certainly is going to have an opportunity now, a chance to start. That's going to be a question for me only because they brought in Kevin Minter from the Cardinals. Yeah. And Kevin Minter is one of the few linebackers in the NFL with back-to-back season of 80-plus tackles. So bringing in Kevin Minter is a very, very nice opportunity for them to slide in there. I think he will play really next to Vontaze Burfict. Now, The question I have with Ray is, can he go outside and play the other outside backer position? If so, you have three really nice and athletic backers there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think he's played outside before, but I couldn't tell you for certain. But yeah, if he can play outside, you got him, Minter, and Burfict. I mean, that's great. So
Yeah, the 4-3 look, that's pretty darn good.
yeah. If it's not gonna be, I don't know who their other starter would be. Maybe Marquise Flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Flowers inherits the job, but I mean, he's doesn't have a long career. I mean, he's only been in the league for 3 years, and I think he missed a year with an injury, if I'm correct. So doesn't really have a large opportunity to say I'm definitely a guy. So I think him and Ray could battle it out. I think that's the battle more than Ray and Minter.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to secondary cornerback, something that the Bengals have invested in the NFL draft over recent years. 2012, they take Drake Kirkpatrick in the first round. They take Darqueze Dennard in the first round, 2014, and in 2016, they take William Jackson in the first round. Besides Kirkpatrick, none of these guys have really panned out, though. At least not yet. Well, I do like Jackson, though. We'll see about him. He was a guy I really liked coming out.
I mean, here's what's kind of interesting is you're 100% right, Adrian. They've invested in first-round picks in these guys, and yet Pac-Man still starts at corner for them.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a little bit of an issue there. Now, the Bengals are, I would probably say, a top 3 team in terms of how frequently they play zone. They love zone coverage. They love a lot of cover 2 looks. So they really like nasty corners. So Pac-Man, he's never been a guy to shy away from anything. He's a nasty defensive back, loves to get physical. So for him playing in the cover 2, he wants that. And that's really where he excels. So I get that there, but they've invested a lot of first-round picks and corners. They're going to have to start letting these guys play. Now, when we get to safeties, they have 2 really good ones. You know,
I love Iloka and Williams. They're both really good.
They might be one of the more underrated safety tandems in the league, but you're going to need to start playing these young or these last first-round picks in corner. Otherwise, you know, if they're that bad, I guess that's why you keep pulling the trigger on first-round corners, but I don't know. I mean, Pac-Man's going to have a game suspension, so we'll see what the future holds there for corners in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I know Jackson missed. I think he missed the season due to an injury. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I think he missed the year. So he's the guy to keep an eye on for me. But Dennard, I mean, it's been 3 years now. Like, I don't know. He could be a bust. So, you know, that's that. All right, so we'll move on to, okay, we got the hot seat. I mean, pretty much Marvin Lewis, Andy Dalton. Anybody else on the hot seat in Cincinnati? I mean, I guess you could put the whole fucking team on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess you say Jeremy Hill is a hot seat guy, but I mean, honestly, Marvin Lewis and Dalton, those are the 2 guys that I really circle here.
Yeah. All right. What were the other ones? Who else are we? Who's underrated?
Underrated fantasy guy kind of thing. I think my underrated guy is Kevin Minter. I really did like that signing the Bengals picked up. I think, you know, that's a really nice opportunity for them to gain another 80-plus tackler next to Burfict. That's a really nice opportunity there. So, you know, when they lost Malaluga, I think they kind of gained a little bit in that kind of trade-off. So I like that. As far as a fantasy perspective, you know, everyone's going to be interested in seeing John Ross. And depending on how your fantasy team is set up, if you're a PPR format, in theory, he could be a guy who could, you know, get you nice points, especially because you might be able to get him in a last round. And if you're a team, if you're in a league where you do keepers, you get him in the last round and he shows something, well, obviously his value goes up in the next year's draft. So there's that. I would probably go with Mixon, though. I think Mixon would be my fantasy guy to look out for just because I really see him doing everything that the 2 backs can do that you mentioned, Adrian. Gio's probably going to miss a couple of games early. That opens the door for Mixon to really show his ability for third down. And I don't think the Bengals really want to commit to signing a Hill to a contract.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with you about Mixon being the fantasy guy. I quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he was a stud because he can catch passes out of the backfield too. So he's going to get PPRs. He's going to get yards for you. We'll see. See, what does concern me are the tackles, because he's a guy that likes to bounce runs to the outside. So if he gets tackles that can't seal the edge for him, he's kind of screwed there. So we'll see all about that. My underrated player, I'm going to go with Sean Williams, the safety. Now, a lot people do know about Iloka. I mean, fans in Philadelphia figured out who he was because as a free agent last year, some fans wanted him. But Sean Williams is a guy that people don't know about. He started for the Bengals last year, first time starter as a safety. He's like a physical in the box type of guy, but he also he's got solid ball skills as well. He had 3 interceptions, so he's really good for them. He attacks as a blitzer. He gets in the backfield in a hurry. He's a good tackler. So Sean Williams would be the guy for me there. That's it, right? We're done. Time for the Steelers.
That's it. Now we got the Steelers.
All right, Steelers are next. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was our 2017 Bengals preview. We'll be right back with the Steelers. That's Brendan Albert. I'm Adrian Fetke. Deuces.
Appreciate it.